Zodiac, The Secret Truth About J.C. the Christ Figure, by the Reverend Bill Darrell-El. All right. So this presentation is Libra. Libra, okay? So we're on page 153. Page 153. Okay, so here we see the cross. You see the illustration says the cross. So this actually, I'm not sure if this is the summer solstice and the equator, or if this is the Southern Cross. Okay, the Southern Cross is a constellation visible in the southern hemisphere only. All right. In other words, you need to be in Peru or Brazil or someplace in the southern hemisphere in order to see this constellation. Okay, y'all. This is the Southern Cross. Okay, I think it's the Southern Cross. But as we read the text, we'll see if it's the Southern Cross or if this is the solstices and the equinoxes. Okay, I don't know. Let's go through it. The deacons of Libra. So again, deacons are constellations that are in the neighborhood of Libra. Okay, they're in the neighborhood of Libra. Well, that being the case, y'all, just me thinking about it, I think that this is the Southern Cross. Okay, but anyway, let's see how the author develops this subheading. Like and share the video. Y'all know that this channel is shadow banned, so you got to do something, okay? Do something. Okay, so let's continue. Let's get started. In addition to the Libra themes of law, relationships, and wealth, Libra themes of law, relationships, and wealth, this section of Mark's Gospels reflects the deacons of the constellation Libra quite clearly. Okay? So, we're going to see if this is true. Okay? We're going to see if this is true. What the author is saying is that these deacons, these constellations that are in the neighborhood of Libra, are clearly evident in the gospel text that has to do with Libra. Okay, that has to do with Libra. So this would be Mark chapter 10, verse 1 through 31. Clearly there. So let's see if he can make his point or not. Okay. So the deacons, these are the cross. So the deacons are the cross, the crown, and lupus. So yes, indeed, the illustration on page 153, this illustration is in fact, y'all, the cross or the Southern Cross. This is the Southern Cross constellation, visible only in the southern hemisphere. That means you cannot see it in the north. Okay, make a correlation, y'all. Make a correlation. The fact is that the ancient Coptic Egyptians wrote the Gospels, the initial, the real one. They wrote it, and it was a treaty on the heavens that tracked the sun's course through the sky. Okay? The zodiac is a belt, B-E-L-T, if you will, around the sun's orbit or the ecliptic. All right? So if the ancient Egyptians actually wrote the Gospels and they were able to see the Southern Cross, where is Egypt? Where is Egypt? Okay, where is Egypt? Second question. What I'm trying to get at is that Well, I won't answer the question. Y'all think about that. Secondly, how many thousands of years ago has it been, if at all, that the southern cruise could be seen in the northern hemisphere? So let's begin the chapter. In addition to the Libra themes of law, relationships, and wealth, this section of Mark's Gospel, Mark 10, 1 through 31, reflects the deacons. Deacons are those constellations in the neighborhood of a zodiac sign. So those deacons of the constellation Libra, quite clearly, okay? So it should be obvious. These constellations are the cross, the crown, and lupus, the wolf or the victim. Okay, y'all got that? And lupus. Now here is the crown. Here is the crown. Pause the video if you're watching this after the live and study it. Recognize all the details in the crown. Okay? Now let's continue. The deacons again are the cross. The deacons of Libra are the cross, the crown, and lupus. Okay? Let's continue. The cross is the southern cross, not visible in northern latitudes today because of the gradual shifting of the heavens. It was last seen in the horizon of Jerusalem about the time the Gospels were written. So how many thousands of years ago? Almost 2,000 years ago, y'all? That's what he's saying, right? When you could see it in Jerusalem. Now, most of y'all should know that the Promised Land was not in Jerusalem in East Africa. Most of y'all should know that by now. I hope. But they're asserting that the southern cruise could be seen in Jerusalem around the time the Gospels were written. So make your correlation. Some of y'all might want to check to see if this is factually correct. Okay? So let's continue. The southern cruise was last seen in the horizon of Jerusalem about the time the Gospels were written. And although, notice this, and although neither Ptolemy nor Millennius referred to the southern cruise or the southern cross, Ptolemy considered the southern cross to be part of Centaurus. That's a constellation, y'all. Allen says that the southern cross was well known to the quote, early races of mankind who 5,000 years ago could see the southern cross from latitudes very much higher than even Italy. This is page 186. And that quote, the ancient Persians who knew the southern cruise or the cross well celebrated a feast by its name. This is on page 190. Okay. So the author is saying that when the Gospels were written, let's just round it off, let's say 2,000 years ago. When the Gospels were written, let's just round it off. In Jerusalem in East Africa, you could see the southern cruise on the horizon. This is the horizon. My hand is the horizon. You could see the southern cruise. My fingernail, let's say, is the southern cruise. Y'all see that? He's saying that about 2,000 years ago, you could see this in Jerusalem, East Africa. Meaning to say that Jerusalem is in East Africa is not in the southern hemisphere. 5,000 years ago, according to Allen, 5,000 years ago, the southern cruise could be seen on the horizon as far north as Italy. As far north as Italy. Y'all see that? My fingernail is a southern cruise. Okay, but it cannot be seen in the north today. I hope I've made that clear. You guys, you scholars, understand what this means now. You have a visual image. All right, so it was last seen in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, and it was 5,000 years ago when it was able to be seen as high as Italy. Okay? Keep these things in mind. Keep these things in mind. So where was Egypt? Where was Jerusalem? Where were they really? Okay, some of y'all might want to reference when rocks cry out. All right? And reference the video I did on the location of the promised land according to Moses. Y'all watch that video. It's an eye-opener. It is an eye-opener. And all of that I get from my knowledge of ancient Ibaryath. Yes, linguistics, no doctrine at all. Alan says that it was well known. Oh, so I already read that. So let's continue. The crown is corona. Y'all got that? The crown is corona. Borellus, which in Greek mythology was the crown given to Eridane by Dionysus. There is a possible allusion to these constellations in Mark chapter 10, verse 21. We're taking, and here's the paraphrase. We're taking up the cross, Mark 10:21. We're taking up the cross, the southern cruise, the southern cross. We're taking up the cross and treasure, the crown and treasure in heaven. Okay? The treasure is the corona or the crown. Take note. Isn't it very interesting, the coronavirus? The coronavirus, the cross and the sword. The cross and the sword. What do you do with the sword in war? What is the function of a sword in war? Right, it's used to terminate people, right? The cross and the sword. Libra. Let me go back. The Knights Templars. They deal with law and justice, finance. Their symbols are the crown, the cross, and you always see them with a sword, right? You see them in the white robe. They have a shield with the cross on it. Okay, a Knights Templar. You see the crown. The crown is the constellation called what? Corona. Deuteronomy 28. The curses. The punishments include sickness and death executed on you by your enemies. Corona. Coronavirus. Coronavirus vaccine generated billions and billions of fiat. For the very same corporations and people who denationalized you, who hypothecate, excheat, and hit you with bills of attainder all over the world. Yes, by your enemies. Why? Why? Because the contract will be executed. It's part of the curses. Until us, the House of Yasharala, the Moors, harmonize ourselves with nature, return to the Most High, this kind of stuff will continue to happen. Now, isn't it very interesting that they use the coronavirus to do that? Y'all hear me? The crown, the cross, and the shield, law, and justice. Justice being executed on you, us as a nation, for not following the Most High's commandments. Yes, yes, Christianity is their gift, their goose that lays the golden egg. Go back and read Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68. The cross, the crown, and the sword. Knights Templar. The judges, so-called judges, those people who are acting as judges, right? The prosecutors, those devils, literally devils. Kashatan, the Satans, right? Everybody who's in the so-called legal system, the justice system. Knights Templars, the financial system. Okay, that legal system is actually banking, finance rather. They call it banking and finance, right? Knights Templar written all over it. Corona vaccine, coronavirus, genocide you out, eliminate you, make a ton of fiat off of you, and maintain possession of your property, your inheritance. You see that? That corona vaccine gave them a huge treasure. I'm just putting two and two together. Anyway, let's continue. The crown is Corona Borealis, which in Greek mythology was the crown given to Ariadne by Dionysus. This is a possible allusion to these two constellations in Mark chapter 10, verse 21, where taking up the cross, the Southern Cross, and treasure, the Corona Borealis, taking up the cross and, quote, treasure in heaven, a crown of glory. A crown of glory. A crown that brings shining light, brilliance. Okay, you can buy a lot of bling, a lot of shine, right? With fiat, their pockets are very full, right? Matthew's parallel account does promise the apostles that they will, quote, sit on 12 thrones, Matthew 19:28, which seems a little closer to the idea of a crown than Mark's version. Matthew also mentions that the apostles will judge, there's an asterisk, we'll come back, the 12 tribes of Israel. Matthew 19:28, reflecting the legal aspect of Libra, more specifically than Mark, and carrying more than a hint of the Egyptian goddess of justice, Ma'at, whose task it was to judge the dead. Okay, so Ma'at, the Coptic Egyptians being the original writers, okay, of the Gospels. Let's continue. The footnote reads, Addison devoted the 100th number of the Tatler, Tatler, that of November 29th, 1709, to quote, that sign in the heaven, which is called by name of the balance. So that's Libra, right? And to his dream thereof, in which he saw the goddess of justice descending from the constellation to regulate the affairs of men. The whole a very beautiful rendering of the ancient thought concerning the Virgin Astrea with Libra. Y'all hear that? The ancient thought of connecting the Virgin Astrea with Libra. He may have been thus inspired by recollections of his student days at Oxford, when he must have often seen this sign as a judge in full robes sculptured on the front of Merton College, Allen. Okay, that's in Allen, page 179. So he saw a statue of this. He saw the constellation presented in statue form. That's what he's saying. Okay. But they connect the Virgin Astrea with Libra. And in the text, it's also the Virgin Ariadne, or Nay, by Dionysus. Okay, that's connected. The goddess of law. So let's continue. Last paragraph in this subheading. The third deacon of Libra is Lupus. The third deacon of Libra is Lupus, the wolf. But Seiss tells us that the ancient world was in some doubt as to what Lupus represented, and that the Arabs used a word in connection with it, that is with Lupus, which means to be slain, destroyed. When the young man walks away from JC, that's the young rich man, y'all, that we covered a few lessons ago, a few presentations ago. When the young man walks away from JC, he is said to be lupomenos, okay, which means dejected, pained, grieved, heavy-hearted, possibly meaning heavy-hearted. Okay, so lupomenos is a participle, it's a verb functioning as an adjective of the Greek verb lupio. Lupus is Latin. Okay, so let's stop. Lupus is Latin. If you remember from the Devil's Pulpit, we learned that the original Gospels were written in Coptic Egyptian. They were translated into Latin, and then thirdly or lastly into Greek as a smokescreen to hide that they were written in Latin and Greek or Coptic Egyptian first, rather. Okay? All right? Clear? Okay, so lupus is Latin. Lupus is Latin. Of course, but such a language pun, right? Lupio menos in Greek and lupus in Latin. There's a language pun. It says, sorry y'all, I'm distracted. There's so much noise in here. And different types of noise. Lupus is Latin, of course, but such a cross-language pun is not out of the question, since Mark and his audience would be familiar with both Greek and Latin. This may not be a veiled reference to lupus. In other words, the author is saying that after all, this may not be a hidden reference to lupus. It may be something else. But it does seem rather an odd coincidence that one of Mark's few uses of the word lupus, another which occurs in Mark chapter 14, verse 9, can be found so close to the ideas which can be readily or easily associated with the other two deacons of Libra. Okay, so the Mark is saying that the Southern Cross is clearly a reference, or the cross and treasure in heaven are clearly references to the Southern Cross and Corona Borealis. So therefore, when you see Lupio Minis, since these two are clear references to the deacons or constellations near Libra, reference to lupus should also be reference to the constellation Lupus. Y'all see that? Okay. Islam to all the Moors. I'm DrYasapa from Zion Law School. Be sure to support, if you feel it in your heart, be sure to support the DrYasapa project to write the book of the law in ancient Ibaryath and then back in modern English. I'm going to remove all Jeremiah 8:8 occurrences, okay, y'all? I'll remove all Jeremiah 8:8 occurrences, all lies, all deception, all deceit, and restore the natural law concepts and principles, okay? I'll restore everything that was taken out that makes it very easy for you to identify that you're the House of Yasharala. Islam to the Moors and Shalom. By the way, don't forget, if you don't want to support that project, you can support my work by buying my books that I've published. The links are all in the description area of this video. You can also subscribe to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course. It's a streaming online course available 24/7, 113 or so video lessons. It is absolutely phenomenal. I can't see how anybody would pass that up for just $10 a month. And my live online class, 506 The Curses, where we actually dig deep into the ancient Ibaryath, and I'll actually teach you how to translate. Okay, you'll learn all of the linguistic concepts in the 101 Ancient Ibaryath class. You don't need any background, formal education in any language. Not modern Hebrew, not biblical Hebrew. You don't need anything, just show up. Islam. Shalom.